All right, so now in our discology, see on the screen currently of digestive really begin mouth mechanical digestion with teeth. We also get a little bit of chemical digestion with the help of saliva. As you swallow food, travel esophagus, stomach, nose in the stomach. There, acid helps the food from the stomach. Part of the small intestine, duodenum. At the duodenum, get substances put into duodenum from other organs, gallbladder and the pancreas, going to again further help digest swallowed food product. As it moves through the small intestine and the large intestine, broken down further, nutrients are pulled out, water is pulled out, and eventually on to rectum, out the. Again, you'll see the function of the digestive system to break down digested food, going to absorb nutrients, as well as eliminate waste. So what you see here, we already talked about this pathway. Mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and then, as you notice, small intestine and large intestine. To them, what we have for the small intestine is the about 10-inch long area right after the stomach is called the duodenum. After the duodenum, jejunum. After the jejunum comes ileum. Small intestine, around 20 or so feet long. Large intestine, not quite as long, but it's large intestine. We have cecum. You'll notice here, hanging off the end is the appendix. We have the ascending colon, transverse colon, ascending colon, sigmoid colon, and then so accessory organs. As I mentioned before, the digestive system has organs that will secrete other substances tract in order to assist in the actual breakdown of the substances. The big things are the gallbladder, bile, emulsify or break down fats, pancreas, what's generally referred to as various pancreatic juices, and these actually help. They play several roles, but the big thing is it helps to neutralize the acid out of the stomach. All right, so word parts, combining form: abdomino, laparo. So both of those refer to the abdomen or the abdominal cavity. Ano refers to appendo, appendix, hole, hole E, gallbladder or bile, colo or colono, colon, duodeno, duodenum. Entero refers to intestine, specifically the small intestine. Remember, the colon is its own separate thing. The colon is the large intestine. Esophago, esophagus, gastro, stomach, gingivo, gums, glosso or linguo, tongue. Hepato refers to liver. So what you see here are more ilio, ileum, juno, junum, oro, or mouth, like the oropharynx, pancreato, pepso is a term that refers to digestion, like pepsin, for instance. Phago, swallowing or eating, just like phagocytosis, proct or recto, and the sigmoid colon itself. This is a suffix we would have already covered at this point. Algia refers to what we can see here. Again, anal anus. Case is without eating, essentially. Not be aphasia, which is without speech. So you could almost pronounce it aphasia. Aphasia would be without eating. Cystitis is 6. Cholecystitis. Regard to gallbladder. Polylithiasis. Gallstones. Colitis. Colon. Duodenal is pertaining to duodenum. Dysentery. Like dysfunctional digestion. To talk about dysentery, like with digestive infections and fluid loss, so extremely excess diarrhea. Dyspepsia is a dysfunction of digestion. Aphasia is dysfunction of eating, and esophageal, the esophagus. Here, real easy. Got the cecum here. Appendix hangs off the end. Is in the right lower quadrant of abdominal cavity. Relatively straightforward. Recognize, but it's incredibly important that it is fixed prior to rupture, because ruptures, it will spew not only digestive material all over the abdomen, and the outside of the actual digestive tubing, it's not meant to come in contact with a lot of that digestive material, and it can cause a lot of damage on its own. But the real danger comes from the fact that our intestines really are home to more bacteria than we have cells in our body. So we would basically be spilling bacteria into our body in a place that they aren't necessarily going to be controlled in. Okay, we have a lot of lymphatic activity in the intestines, but once you get to the outside of it, have a lot worse defense, because there really shouldn't be bacteria hanging around outside of the viscera in the abdominal cavity. Here, cholelithiasis, gallstones, basically calcifications inside of gallbladder, and then they can get stuck various ducts on their way to the duodenum. Esophagitis, again, inflammation of the esophagus with eating. Gastric pertains, specifically in this case, we talk about pertaining to the stomach. Gastritis is in the stomach. Gastroenteritis, this is what you would realistically refer to as like the quote-unquote stomach flu. It's just a infection or inflammation referring to the stomach and the small intestine. Gastroenterology, these are basically doctors or specialists that are studying the stomach. Gastroesophageal, this is going to refer specifically to area where the esophagus meets the stomach. Gingivalgia, gingivitis, these are referring specifically to gingiva or the gums in the mouth. And glossitis is the tongue. Hepatitis, various forms of hepatitis exist, but generally it's a inflammation of the liver. Hepatoma, swelling in the liver. Hepatomegaly, a enlargement of the liver can for various different reasons. Pancreatic itis, talking about pancreas here. So pancreatic means referring to the pancreas. Pancreatitis, pancreas. Sublingual is another important term. Sublingual basically means below the tongue case, or below where speech comes from. But think about it as below the tongue. So going through here, these are various procedures that are performed. Esophagogastroduodenoscopy. Literally just saying that you're performing a scope procedure, esophagus through the stomach and into the duodenum. We should all be very familiar now with the difference between scope, scopy, and scopic. And at this point, this is the first time we've seen laparo being used. Laparo is literally just kind of meaning going through the abdominal wall. We use it. It can be kind of interchangeably used with domino, the root or binding form, but it specifically has its own kind of rules on when you would use laparo. So colonoscopy, polyps, masses are on the inside of the colon. Typically, I would say on average, they don't really mean anything, but they can be indicative of other conditions. Like here at a gastroscope, basically you got a scope with a light and a camera on the end, fed down the digestive system, esophagus, and through the stomach. You're basically looking for things like ulcers or lesions, abnormal growths. Here's a closer up view of the gastroscope. They're relatively simple, especially because it's pretty much just a camera. On the end, you have the same tool, colonoscopy thing, where you can essentially grab things, pull them out. So again, diagnostic terms, word parts, proctoscope, endoscopy, sigmoidoscopy. Again, these are two very specific areas that are being looked at with scopes. Abdominocentesis. Remember, we had a thoracocentesis previously. This is just a draining, a puncture where we're going to be draining fluid. Appendectomy, cholecystectomy, both of those are removals of their organs, so appendix and gallbladder. Colectomy is a partial removal. Colostomy is the colon. Ileostomy or jejunostomy can be also done as well. We're removing parts of the small intestine. So again, you're going to see here words that aren't made with word parts that can be commonly used. So again, ultrasonography, bariatric surgery. There's several different types of bariatric surgery. Common that people think of are surgery that essentially make these smaller in order to help individuals with weight loss. Barium enemas are given an enema of barium, and it allows us to actually see the intestines due to the barium. Constipation is the ability to excrete solid waste. Crohn's disease is a type of irritable bowel. Relatively more commonly occurring in our modern time, potentially really related to environmental or dietary items, but it's also believed that there could be some genetic link as well. Diarrhea is, again, watery stool. Endoscopic retrography. Again, going through more things here. Most of these things people would have heard of before. There are several different types of hernias. Common people think of are the inguinal or sports hernia, where the intestine essentially can escape through abdominal wall musculature and potentially get trapped to the point that it can be strangulated and cause polyps. Remember, are items that get removed. A colonoscopy. So looking at these, the IBS and UC. So we have ulcerative colitis, IBS. Barium enema, and going through here though. So this is the really long word from earlier. Endoscopic retrograde cholangiopancreatography. Okay, it's a mouthful. Slow it down. GERD. GERD is a esophageal reflux disease. It specifically can result in what's called Barrett's esophagus condition. Been basically the stomach acid gets up into the esophagus, and again, that's why it's called esophageal reflux. And that acid is going to cause inappropriate changes to the esophagus itself. It's going to actually change the type of cell that is lining the esophagus there, which is going to change its function. And that damage that causes that change actually results in change at the genetic level, obviously. And that genetic change, what associates GERD to esophageal cancer via the condition of Barrett's esophagus.